I'm going to show you how to use the Universal Audio Console for amazing vocals. Whether you have the Apollo stuff, the quad, the solo, the duo, any of those products that uses the console, I'm going to show you the emulations that I use to get superb vocals. Let's get into it. First thing that we're going to do, whether we have any kind of Apollo products or either the satellite, is we want to load the console. Now, when we load the console, depending on which console we have, it'll load up in a certain way, but it'll look like this in a similar capacity. Now, before we start, we have to understand that the Universal Audio, the Apollo, all of these things that use DSP and these emulations are modeled after hardware. So if you go into a studio, they're going to use outboard gear such as preamps, compressors, EQs, sometimes delays and even reverbs. Not so common, but delays and reverbs. So that's what we want to use on the front end of our vocals to be able to get a certain sound. So we're going to put those emulations on the insert tabs, right? So we have the input, the microphone. Always make sure your phantom power is hooked up unless you have something like a tube microphone that uses, an outside source of phantom power. Now there's two emulations that I primarily like to use, the LA2A and the EQP1A, and both are free. Now there's a lot of dope emulations that you could try with the Universal Audio. They're like 14-day trials, but for the most part, I just like using those two. I could use a external preamp, but I like the preamp that's built into the Apollo, if I can just be honest. So what I want to do is, the three that I like using, I want to go to compressors and limiters, and I like these four rather, the LA2, the LA2A gray, the legacy, and the silver. The silver has more of a thinner high-end sound. The legacy is just a good compressor. The gray is a little bit warmer, so if you're add warmth to your microphone, use the gray. And the LA2, it's just a vintage sound. It just sounds amazing. So we're gonna load up the gray, and instantly when you load up, you can see that it gives you a boost in volume. So you always have to watch how much input that you have on your microphone. And with this particular microphone, it has a boost on the high end. So we can go to Google and we can look up Aston Origin frequency response. Every microphone that you use has a built-in frequency response, right? I'll pull this up for you. Here's the frequency response for this particular mic that I'm using. And when you get good at using these emulations, you can make these microphones sound however that you like. Sometimes it's kind of crazy how people have all of these different microphones. The only thing that you really need to do is just change the frequency response or either EQ it in a certain way, and you can make almost any microphone sound like anything. One thing that we can't change about these microphones are the wiring that they use, copper wiring, gold wiring. That does affect what the sound in a certain capsule, what it's made of. That does affect how the microphone sounds. But for the most part, most of these microphones are good microphones as long as they're condenseners, mid-sized capsules or large capsules, but that's another story. But on this particular microphone, it has a little bit of dip from 50 hertz to 100 hertz. And then it has a boost from the 5K range up to the 10 kilohertz range. So this microphone automatically gives you presence. But sometimes, what if I want a microphone that's a little bit flatter going into my system, and I might not like that? Because naturally, if somebody would compare this microphone to something like a TLM 103, this microphone is way too sharp in comparison to that. Or that microphone might be way too flat in comparison to this. But if we understand and we know the frequency response to these microphones, then we can dictate where we need to go with our emulations going into our recording. So the first thing that I like to do is I like to set my compressor. Now, when in a real studio, I like to compress, EQ, and then go into the system. And like I said, if you're using like something like a satellite that's not an Apollo product and you're using external, then you might want to use an external preamp. But for the most part, I'm using the onboard preamp. So I like to just go and I'll start from the extreme and I'll just dial back. And I say, okay, cool, boom, 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 boom. And I find a sweet spot. My right there. Woo, 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 woo. Okay, so my sweet spot is like 45. So I set it to 45. Yeah. I want my gain a little bit. And then I'm watching the metering right here. So I like that 12 around about almost 15. Yeah. Okay, cool. That's cool to me. I like that. And then the next one is we're gonna use the EQP 1A. We'll go to equalization and we'll find that. And these are also free. So we have two free ones, the Pultec EQP 1A, EQP 1A Legacy. Let's choose the Legacy. And like I said, both of these are free. Now, if you use a tube microphone will be way more warmer than the sound that we have. Now, we want to I like when I record to preserve as much data as possible, unless I'm going for a certain sound. Because sometimes I could go in and I can cut out all the lows. And if I go in, it's hard to go back in and add artificial lows without creating a funny type of sound. So what I like to do is I like to preserve all of the low end energy before I go in and even add some. Because maybe, with a voice that is thin as mine, I don't have as much presence. So I might choose my range and I say, okay, cool. Where is that thumb? I'm looking for what's called the thumb. Boom, boom, boom. And where my voice begins to sound a little bit heavy. I like that sound right here. Now, this is the sound that I like. Okay, attenuate just means that we're going to cut some of that low energy. Yeah. That sounds good at 2 right there. And I'm going to make it a little bit broad. Yeah. And let's say I want the boost at 12 to add a little bit more presence. That's way too sharp for me. Yeah. I love that right there. And if we need to cut back on some of that energy and make it a little bit more flatter, we could do that. We're here with an attenuation on the high frequency filter. Yeah. And that is the sound that I love. I love that sound. And we can A/B that. We can turn it off, turn it on. Yeah. Turn it off. Yeah. And to me, this just has way more presence. So I love this. So let's try this out. Now I'm going to load up a session. I have one already. And what I like doing is I like using these products in conjunction with my vocal templates. I designed a series of vocal templates, but this one is my favorite. It's called the Fedarro template. This year alone, I've almost cut 500 records. Last year, I did about almost 1,100 records, hooks and full records. So I have it loaded, the Fedarro template. Now we'll try it out. Yeah. And as you can see, this sounds amazing already. What we did was we put all those emulations on the front end, so when we get to our recording, it could sound like this. So let's just do it like a practice take. The night before, you don't know that you give me my heart. Don't let me let you down. You can be my source of inspiration. You let your burdens down. Yeah. Okay. Now let's listen back to that. It's not perfect, it's just a freestyle. So don't beat me up for it. The night before, you don't know that you give me my heart. Don't let me let you down. You can be my source of inspiration. So literally, it's the cheat code. So looking at these vocals is literally the cheat code, because at the end of the day, when you can compress in a certain way, the vocals aren't as wild. So it makes mixing a lot easier. But to me, the vocals are a little bit heavy on here. So look, let's dial this back. Let's dial the boost on it down a little bit. Let's come down. Yeah. I like that. And let's cut that again. You don't know by now, you're my girl. You can't belong to nobody else. I'ma have you wonder, wait, let's listen to that. You don't know by now, you're my girl. You can't belong to nobody else. I'ma have you wonder, wait. And you see how that gives you like an already mixed sound? When you can do like that and you can control your compression and EQ and your preamp on the front end, when you get into Pro Tools or whatever DAW that you're using, it makes it seamless. Like I knock out records like that because this already sounds mixed. Using that in combination with my templates is powerful. So you can only imagine how when this sounds, and I'm just going through records and how the ability that you'll have just to go through records once you understand how to do that. But see, a lot of people get wrong is they buy these Apollo products and any kind of products that use emulations, and they never use the emulations. The emulations are there to help you. They're there to help you set your sound so you can just run through records and just get your ideas out there quickly. So all in all, that is how you use, the universal audio. And then one thing that I have to say before I go is that when you're using these emulations, you have to make sure the UAD record button is on. A lot of times a lot of people I'll see that say, well, it doesn't sound the way that yours sounds. They'll have this UAD monitor on, which means I'm monitoring the emulations, but they're not being recorded. So you have to hit that UAD record button when you're recording into your system. That is the thing. So make sure that button is on. Make sure, when you're using the Apollo console that you have the everything set like that. Make sure you grab one of my templates and you're going to fly through records. So it's Fedarro. If you like this, please comment, please like, please subscribe. Thank you. Till next time, family. Keep making great music.